because you are. That's Ubuntu. I would not be here if you were not here. South African. And all of South Africa uses that a lot. And I also want to pay my respect to the Kulin Nation, and I thank them for letting us share the space and the land. I have a quick quiz before we continue. Who have 2 divided by 2 and 2 divided by 2? The 2 different answers. Which one is the correct answer?
They're both right.
They're both right, she said. Everybody agree that they're both right?
It depends.
It depends.
Contextually.
Okay. Contextually, it depends. But mathematically, the first one, mathematically, is correct. But she's correct, they're both right.
Different number systems, right? Different number systems.
Not even the different number system, just logically from the perspective of a Kisi child. So you pick up 2 candies. You have 2 friends. You divide the candy by 2 people. What is left? Nothing is left. So the Kisi child will tell you that 2 divided by 2 is 0. Anything that is equally divided, what is left is 0. So the Kisi child might be wrong when you're doing the number system, that particular number system, but in his head and mind, he is not wrong. So while teaching mathematics or doing any STEM-related project in an environment, it is important to consider the context of the child instead of dismissing an answer that the child gives you. So my dissertation was on in Kisi. This is a modified topic with a smaller base, conceptualizing theoretical framework for post-colonial education for Kisi. All right, the purpose of this research was to examine the relationship between elements of culture that are relevant for the education. Cultural relevant element, I can never say it right. So cultural relevant elements of education that support learning and teaching for Kisi children in K-12 or primary secondary school K-12 education system. I didn't want to deal with college, just the kids for now. I used post-colonial theory. It took a minute to find the right theories for this, and there's lots of good theories out there, but post-colonial theory and decoloniality and all of that family of theories was the framework I wanted to work on or follow, because this country is a country that is post-colonial. It was colonized by the British. So it supports an understanding and learning and teaching from the context and culture of the child, and it supports a learn of understanding relationships that are past and present relationships, both colonial and current events. So you place what you're doing in the past, in the colonial period, and then you look at the past, and then you look at what's happening today, and which also is supported at the postmodern worldviews, which also supports the contextualization in the current periods of the lives of indigenous peoples, native peoples, however you call it, where you come from. So my argument and problem was that K-12 education in Kisi may be negatively affected by curriculums and pedagogies that are not culturally relevant. To support this, is education systems are fundamentally Eurocentric because of colonialism, and this creates a mismatch between what and how Kisi children learn in school and at home. My code book was built out of the entire data set. I used thematic analysis using NVivo to make sure that I got all the themes that I needed. I didn't go in with preset themes. I just pulled them out of the data, and then I used it in ENA. I won't go through all of that. I don't have time for that. Once I threw everything into ENA, I was very excited to look at these mean positions. I know some people do not think mean positions say a lot when it comes to ENA, but I was like, I love mean positions. For me, when I look at this graph right here, the first question was, why are the students so far away from the cultural expert? I could tell why the children are so far away from the cultural expert from my qualitative data. So seeing it here, I was like, oh, this is great. It is supporting this misalignment that I'm talking about, and I'm going to show you how in a moment. So let's just pick one quote, for example. It says, in Kisi, especially for men, once you are circumcised, then we know you are now a man. So that was the thing that was making us Abagusi, so it's either Kisi or Abagusi, that was making us distinct from the rest, but it is fading. So there's that complaint there. You can see the relationship, right? When you look at heritage to formal education and you look at process, and then you look down to initiation, those are the 3 points that I'm going to talk about to show you that connection. So it cross connects, right? It interconnects, so that relationship between the cultural expert and the student. So the heritage is basically talking about the foods, all the surface things in the culture, the dressing, and all the fun things that we can see when it comes to culture that most people usually talk about. The beliefs and values are the more down level that they don't talk about. So here when you see culture being prominent is because they talk about those things in school. Heritage Week, or we bring out all the big guns of the culture during Heritage Week, and it's for 1 week, and that's it. Imagine you're a Kisi child, the only time you hear about your culture in school is during Cultural Week. So that prominence is there. And the link to process is just the fact that they would explain things about cooking a lot. So I would ask all these other questions about beliefs and values, and nothing was really connecting because they always talked about food and how to make food and things like that. But it was still very theoretical, more than hands-on practice. Even though you have the practice at the far end, it wasn't a lot of that. Initiation now pulls down to this quote that I just read. The thing with this, with initiation is, that is the period in the life of a Kisi child that they get all their education. So if you look somewhere up there, it says Kisi education. I call it Kisi education because there is a time frame that you teach. It's different from the formal education system. Before the colonizers came in, there was an education system. What was it? That is what I termed the Kisi education system. And it is centered around the circumcision period. The circumcision period is around 12, or between 10 and maybe 13 years old. And it was both women and men circumcision. And that is a period where they would transfer the knowledge of grandparents and all of that. You get the cutting of the flesh. I think we all know what circumcision is, right? So I don't have to explain anything here. So you get the cutting of the flesh, but at the same time, you get all the training that your ancestors passed down to your parents and your grandparents during that period. So that was a time where the children learned, they understood their roles in society, the kind of man you wanted them to be. I think here in Australia they call it the walkabout, where the child just go, yeah, so that's it. So that's how they did it then. With circumcision being banned, especially for women, that had to go away. That's why that complaint is there. It is fading. So it connects to heritage just because there's a lot of food during that period, there's a lot of festivities, there's a lot of heritage activities happening during that period. Now let's go back to that gap that we're talking about. We see the beliefs, oral tradition, rewards and punishment, values did not interconnect. They all stay in the heritage group. So the heritage group is talking about all these deep cultural things, but there's none of it happening in the school system because the teachers are not talking about it. The students are not talking about it with the teachers. So you see that with that now, you know there is that gap. That variance that we saw in the beginning is because those things are not connecting, and it's so far away from each other, which we want to be close. If I had looked at everything and it was like that, I would be like, hooray, there is no problem from colonialism. Let's pack up and leave. But that's not the case. I am saddened that I was right. So, all right, let's race through this. So I just decided to take a minute and look at the teachers. The teachers were somewhere in the middle, if you remember. The teachers were somewhere in the middle. And I'm like, okay, let me look at the teachers for a little bit. And I noticed that they used local language, and one of the students was like, local language will help those who do not understand English to make learning better. So there's a lot of code switching from the teachers, and it was important for the teachers to at least understand the local language. The cool thing in Kenya is that if you're in Kenya, you speak Swahili, and then you can speak the local language, which is in Kisii was Gusi or Abagusi, or not Abagusi is the people. Now I'm blanking out my languages, it's been a while, forgive me. So they have their own language, and then they have Swahili, and then they have English. So the teachers are able, that can speak all three, can do code switching and help the students understand. So you see, it nudges that closer to the students. And at school, they should integrate Kisii stories as a refreshment when we are bored, mixed stories with chemistry. So the students actually desire things that have to do with their cultures, oral traditions, all of that. They desire those things. But we do see again that things like values and beliefs do not connect, which continues to reinforce that mismatch that exists. So my thematic analysis basically confirmed that misalignment, and it validated that mismatch, that what students are learning in school is different from what they are learning at home. So we want that to be one, but it's hard because they are working on a colonial system compared to a local system. It also confirmed that practices, processes, and strategies of learning, they are more theory, they don't do a lot of hands-on practice with what they learn. It revealed I have 9 elements from the thematic analysis. We proposed that back into schools. Circumcision was my surprise. Like, I was very surprised by the reactions I received and the passion that these people have about either the female circumcision, which is called FGM now, it's banned. They're very passionate about these things. And the passion was not centered about, oh, we like cutting our flesh and letting our kids catch some diseases once in a while and die. But it's all because they lost critical time period in the child's life when their culture was transferred to the child. Mm-hmm. So they mourn the loss of the culture. So all my 9 codes connected, but ENA helped me really see what was really clicking. And it was the language, the heritage, the oral tradition. But all 9 of them, like I said, all were connected at one point or the other. So they are all very useful for educating children. The ones that you see here are the ones that have been used before. And if you were in my other session, you would know what local STEM is. Local STEM is just basically, you take the STEM and you make sure that the principles of STEM are there, but you are dealing in the local environment. You're creating solutions for the local environment. You're using local products and all of that. I did create a framework for teachers and for policymakers, whoever wants to deal with people that are in a post-colonial environment must think about everything from the context of culture, the culture of the child. So the framework can be shifted, it can be modified. The key thing in this was that I used augmentation because the goal is not to take away, it's not to like destroy Eurocentric education when there's benefits. There's a lot of things, we can't just go scrap everything and go back to circumcision and start doing that, and start teaching again like that. But there's things that we can augment, adjust, and make sure that we have a more holistic education or more cultural relevant education. And when it comes to that STEM principles that I talk about, also always taking something that was designed somewhere else and always implementing it from the perspective of the child. So you don't adopt or transfer without thinking, how does it affect the culture of the child? All right, I'm almost there, I promise. This mismatch between children's readiness in Kisii and how they learn at home compared to school is one way to sum up a mismatch globally. If we think about it, this is not only in Kisii, it's in a lot of places. So education systems have not solved the problem of aligning how children live and learn at home and at school, or what is expected in both areas. This is a problem that definitely requires more research, and I hope that I could keep doing it, or somebody here can take up the mantle. So Nyamoro, Asante Asana, and thank you.